Welcome to the Autism in Black podcast, where we focus on all things autism and the Black parent experience. Our goal is to always educate, support, and empower parents to advocate for not only their children, but themselves. I'm Maria Davis-Pierre, a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and America's #1 autism advocate for Black parents. I'm the founder and CEO of Autism in Black Inc., where we aim to include the excluded.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast. I'm your host, Maria Davis-Pierre, and here we are with someone who is going to actually be opening us up with some spoken word original poetry for the Autism in Black conference, the 4th annual virtual conference. So today we have Lovelee Lundy, who is a published author and poet and proud mother of one to her amazing son, Cairo. When Cairo turned 2 years old, he was diagnosed with autism, and having to navigate their new normal was both work and rewarding. There was so much to learn, and although she says she is no expert, she wrote a children's book to help others learn more about autism. And the title of that book is called Hello, My Name is Cairo. And it was written in a way children could understand, and it includes activities some parents with newly diagnosed children can find helpful. Lovelee says she didn't have a book like this with Cairo's initial diagnosis, so she created one with the intention to support, inspire, educate, promote representation, and spread awareness about autism through Cairo's journey. Hi, Lovelee. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Lovelee was actually in attendance at our 3rd annual virtual conference, and she was a VIP attendee. So I've gotten to speak with her privately, engage with her privately through that. So I'm just excited that now for our 4th annual conference, Lovelee is going to be sharing her talents and opening us up Saturday morning with some poetry. So I'm very excited about that.
I'm excited too. I can't wait.
I know. So let's jump right into it. So your journey as a published author and poet, inspired by your son Cairo's autism diagnosis, one is incredibly inspiring. But can you share with our listeners how Cairo's diagnosis influenced you on your decision to write your book? Hello, my name is Cairo.
So for me, when Cairo was diagnosed, he was just 2 years old. And I think like many of us parents, we go through these stages of grief and all these things, we're like, oh, my kid, what does this look like? And you don't know what it looks like. You don't know what your future looks like. And it's very uncertain. But I wanted to be able to show my son that anything is possible.
Mm.
So I actually have been writing poetry for years, but I never shared it with anyone until about 2 years ago when I decided, I was like, you know what? I want to show my son that you don't give up on your dreams. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. It doesn't matter what that journey looks like, but you don't give up. So I was like, I have to lead by example. So let me get out here and start sharing, my poetry. And so it's a funny story because when I first started, I released a poetry book last year, and it was called Feel, Heal, and Enjoy. And I kind of snipped a bit, there are some poems in there about Cairo and his autism. But it's overall just, I guess, an expression of myself and things that I've been through. And so I was getting ready to write another book that's actually getting ready to come out next year. And it's
Yeah.
about Cairo. It's called Cairo Finds His Confidence.
Okay.
And I was like, before releasing this book, I was like, I want people to know who Cairo is.
Mm-hmm.
And although autism does not define who my son is, I would love people to get to know all aspects of him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was like, just sitting down, and I was like, how can I? And it actually started as a poem. because the book rhymes through and through. It started off as a poem, and I was like, this would make a really good story.
Mm.
And so, in doing so, I've worked for the last year, year and a half, trying to make this come true. And I'm just so happy that I'm at the point where I can finally share it with other people. So I'm excited. I'm proud. I know he may not really know. Like I kind of showed him the author's copy, and he read the top. He's like, "Hello, my name is Cairo." But other than that, he's like, "I'm not interested." So and that's fine. But I'm in a place of gratitude right now.
I love that. I think that as parents, especially when we have our first child, it really kind of, even if they have a disability or not, shifts us and shifts our perspective. And the fact that you're like, well, I want my son to be able to reach for the stars and know that anything is possible and he should be going after his dreams. But how can I say that to him if I'm not doing that for myself? And I love that you said, you know what? I'm going to go for my dreams so that I can show him that it truly is possible. I don't want to just speak that to him. I want to walk that walk. And I think that as parents, that is so important. I remember being at a conference one time, and one of the speakers said one of the worst things that we can do as parents is not reach for our own dreams,
Mhm.
because it really shows our children that we're telling them this, but we're not doing it for ourselves. So I love that you have invested in yourself. And I'm so very happy and so proud of you, as I tell you all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. And two, for those of you who will be at the conference, and if you haven't snagged your ticket yet, go to autisminblack.org/conference 2024. I am giving out some copies of Lovely's book. So that will be exciting. So if you want to be entered into that, make sure you go ahead and snag your ticket. This episode of the Autism in Black podcast is sponsored by Amazon, our title sponsor for the 4th annual Autism in Black conference, and Grantmakers for Girls of Color, our gold sponsor for the 4th annual Autism in Black conference. Special thanks to Amazon and Grantmakers for Girls of Color for their sponsorship and making an impact. So I want to talk a little bit more about the book. So the book is aimed at promoting autism awareness and understanding. What specific aspects of Cairo's journey did you want to highlight in the book, or did you highlight in the books specifically with hopes that it would resonate with other families?
So the beginning of the book, I love the whole concept of the book because it's actually set up as Cairo standing in the front of the classroom, telling his class about himself. It's kind of like a first day feel of introductory. So he's talking about how we came upon the diagnosis, things that I saw in him, and that I reached out to his doctor. We
Mm.
talk briefly about how at first, the doctor didn't agree, and how I was persistent, and how I did some research to help him reach his goals. So we
Mhm.
kind of hit on things like, not having eye contact, or his speech starting to retract at a certain age, or he would pace back and forth on his tiptoes. So it was just certain things like that that I wanted to highlight. And I know that's not everyone's story and everyone's journey, but that's why I wanted to make this book specific to Cairo, because I wanted to show what I saw with him and the things that got me curious and wanting to get him evaluated.
Mm, I love that. One that resonates with me, as many of you know my story, it was a little persistence with the doctors as well, when they did not want to. Well, actually, all of mine agreed, and they just didn't want to give the diagnosis. But I think that that is something that we deal with when we're advocating for our children, especially as Black parents. It's like, oh my gosh, now we have to kind of jump through hoops, and you know, having it sound lovely as your name. You're very nice about how you set that up, but we do know how that realness is, that reality of having to jump through those hoops of just trying to advocate for our children. And I love that you are covering that in your book. And I love that, one, this is a children's book that can be read in schools. Cairo can even take it to school and read it to his class, and they can understand about what it's like, right? But also the adults who are reading this to their children, or the teachers who are in the class, can understand that, oh, this is something that I never thought about. I didn't know that some parents had to really go above and beyond to advocate for their children. So I think even though it's a children's book, everybody gets to learn something from it.
Yeah.
Yes. So also, switching gears a little bit, I know that poetry has been a profound outlet for you in processing your emotions. How did it help you in processing your emotions surrounding Cairo's autism diagnosis? I think that a lot of times, especially in the Black community, we don't like to talk about, as parents, the processing that comes along with an autism diagnosis, and how we have to process that diagnosis. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Of course. So for me, poetry is definitely emotion based. And the ideas come to me so quick. Like I can be even sitting here and just ideas will flow in my head based off what I'm feeling. So of course I have poems that I wrote when I was pregnant with Cairo. And I wrote these poems and I'm just like the expectancy of, my child. But after the diagnosis, there was a shift, and a good shift, because in a lot of my poetry, I celebrate him. I celebrate him who he is, exactly who he is. And then there's the aspects of my poetry that I've taken on that I think a lot of parents can relate to.
Mhm.
So I talk a lot about, the mental aspect of raising a child with disabilities. I talk about the emotional aspect of raising a child with a disability. And I think I've used my poetry to find a way to connect with parents. And it's it's a beautiful thing. I like to think of it as a beautiful thing because I've been able to combine two of my favorite things, my son and my love of poetry. And I didn't even think that these two things would go hand in hand, but they mesh perfectly for me.
Mhm.
And I'm just so excited because I'm finding out that I can continue to help people just as I am, through
Mhm.
books, through poetry. So I'm excited to see where things go from here.
I love that. One, I think that utilizing your passion, and your passion is poetry, to process those emotions is important. Finding yourself saying, hey, I don't want to get lost. I don't want to have this, as the little trending swallow me up with all of what's going on. And the fact that you got into your passion and said, you know what, let me have this process what I'm going through. I think that's a good aspect of self-care. Because as parents, oftentimes, especially parents who are raising children who have disabilities, we get so hyper focused on our child or children that we lose ourselves. So the fact that you were able to be like, I'm going to combine my two passions, my son and my love for poetry. And not only is it helping me, but it has the opportunity now to help so many other people. There are so many people who enjoy poetry, and the fact that you are highlighting something that is so, a topic that is so important in your poetry, is just going to reach so many different people, and they get to learn about autism. So I love that.
Thank you.
And then, one, can you tell us just a little snippet? Because if you want to hear the whole full thing and hear more about it, you're going to have to be at the conference. But give us a little snippet about this original poem you are going to be opening up the Autism in Black conference with.
So this poem, oh man, I'm excited. I'm excited for you to hear it. And it's not very unlikely. It's done now, but it's very possible that I might add to it because that's what I do.
Mhm.
I go based off of my emotion, but I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to include the organization in the poem. I wanted to include this year's topic of bridging the gap. So I really wanted to make this poem specifically feel curated just for this event.
Mm.
And I hope it resonates. I really do. I hope that people can hear it and see the emotion behind it, but also are aware, that we're all here for each other. And
Mm.
it is important to bridge the gap because those spaces need to be filled.
I love that. One, I love that as a past attendee, you have the feeling on the other side of what it was like to experience the conference. So I know that that's probably incorporated into what you've done, because you're like, oh, okay, I've experienced the conference. I know what it feels like. I know the safe space that this can be. I know how I can find myself in learning from the content here. And I'm just so excited. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm going to be hearing what everybody and that morning as well. I'm not hearing it beforehand. I'm going to experience it with everybody because I want to feel that raw emotion as well. So I'm very excited because, one, you're very talented.
Thank
And
you.
two, I think that this is going to really just set Saturday morning up for us in a different way. We try to incorporate different methods into our conference. And I think that this is something that's really going to set the tone for that day. So I'm truly excited and truly grateful that you are give us a little sneak peek that the organization and some of what we do is in there. So now I'm like, oh, I really want to wait to hear this. And as we wrap up, what advice do you have for parents or caregivers of Black autistic children who may be struggling to find their voice or express their experiences through creative outlets like poetry?
Mm, you know, the best thing I can say is reach out.
Mm.
Try to find a tribe. And if you can't find the tribe at the time, find yourself,
Mm.
center yourself, look inward, and know that you can do this. There are going to be some challenges ahead. There are going to be some times, good and bad. But don't focus on the bad. Look towards the good and know that you are the perfect parent for your child. You can do
Look, I got to give some poetry stamps on that.
this.
But you taking us out on a high note, so I love that. Now, where can people order your book? Where can they connect with you? Tell the people all of that information, and we will also have it in the show notes for everybody as well.
So you can get the book currently at my website, www.loveleelundy.com. That's LOVELEELUNDY. And you can find me. I'm almost on every platform. I'm trying to be better about that, but
We all are.
I am an autism mom, and my days go so many ways. But
Mhm.
I am very personable. So if anyone ever has any questions or just need to hear a poem, I am always here for you. So feel free to reach out.
Perfect. And as I said, Lovelee is a speaker this year at the Autism Black conference. So if you are an attendee, you'll be able to connect with her also inside of our app and network with her there as well. She'll also have an exhibitor booth where you can go to, and I'm sure she'll have a link to her book in there as well where you can purchase. So thank you so much for gracing us today and giving us some of this background on your book and your poetry as well. I want to give you flowers. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this so much.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can always be notified when a new episode drops. To get the resources shared on today's podcast and the show notes, make sure to go to autisminblack.org/podcast. Don't forget to share your takeaways from the show on your IG stories and Twitter using our official hashtag AIBpod so that we can find and share them. If you want to continue the conversation from today's episode, Join our Autism in Black podcast Facebook community at facebook.com/group/AIB pod.